Type 2 diabetes affects more than 500 million people worldwide, and most are told the same thing: you'll have this forever. But what if that's wrong? What if type 2 diabetes isn't permanent at all? New science suggests that for many people, simply changing when they eat, not just what they eat, may help reverse the disease at its root. Today, we're breaking down how intermittent fasting works inside your body and why it's changing everything we thought we knew about diabetes. Type 2 diabetes is often described as a blood sugar problem. That description sounds simple, but it hides the real issue. High blood sugar is not the disease itself. It's a warning signal, a symptom. Something deeper is happening inside the body long before glucose numbers start climbing. To understand how fasting may reverse type 2 diabetes, we first need to understand what actually breaks down in the first place. And surprisingly, it has less to do with sugar intake and more to do with how the body stores energy. Every time you eat, your body breaks food down into usable fuel. One of the main fuels is glucose, a type of sugar that circulates in your bloodstream. Your cells rely on glucose to power everything they do, from muscle movement to brain function. But glucose can't enter cells on its own. It needs help. That help comes from a hormone called insulin, produced by the pancreas. Insulin acts like a signal, telling cells it's time to open their doors and take in fuel. In a healthy system, this process works smoothly. You eat. Blood sugar rises slightly. The pancreas releases insulin. Cells respond and absorb glucose. Blood sugar returns to normal. Everything stays balanced. Problems begin when cells stop responding to insulin the way they should. Insulin is still present. The signal is still being sent, but the cells stop listening. This condition is called insulin resistance, and it sits at the center of type 2 diabetes. Insulin resistance doesn't appear overnight. It develops gradually, often over years. At first, the pancreas compensates by producing more insulin. Blood sugar stays normal, but insulin levels rise higher than they should. Over time, this constant demand wears the system down. Eventually, even large amounts of insulin can't force glucose into cells. Sugar remains trapped in the bloodstream, and blood glucose readings begin to rise. That's when many people receive a diagnosis. But here's the critical question: why do cells become resistant to insulin in the first place? The answer isn't sugar alone, it's storage. The human body is exceptionally good at storing energy. The liver stores glucose for short-term use. Muscles store glucose for movement. Fat tissue stores massive amounts of energy for long-term survival. This system evolved to protect humans during times of scarcity. But in a world of constant food access, storage can reach dangerous levels. Imagine trying to add more files to a hard drive that's already full. At some point, it simply refuses. Cells behave the same way. When they're packed with energy, especially fat, they become less willing to accept more. Insulin tries to deliver glucose, but the cells resist. This isn't a failure of insulin, it's a protective response. The cells are saying, "We're full." The result is glucose backing up into the bloodstream. As insulin resistance increases, the body responds by producing even more insulin. This creates a vicious cycle. High insulin pushes more energy into storage. More storage increases resistance. Resistance demands more insulin. Over time, this constant pressure overwhelms two critical organs, the liver and the pancreas. And when these organs fail to regulate blood sugar properly, type 2 diabetes accelerates. The liver plays a central role in blood sugar control. Its job is to release glucose when the body needs energy and stop releasing it when fuel is abundant. But when fat accumulates inside liver cells, this control system breaks down. A fatty liver becomes insulin resistant itself. It continues releasing sugar even when blood glucose is already high. This is why many people with type 2 diabetes wake up with elevated blood sugar despite not eating overnight. At the same time, fat begins to accumulate around the pancreas. The pancreas contains beta cells, which are responsible for producing insulin. When these cells are surrounded by fat, they become stressed. They struggle to keep up with demand. For years, they push out insulin at high levels to overcome resistance. Eventually, they begin to malfunction. Some slow down. Others stop working efficiently. Blood sugar rises further. This leads to a crucial insight. Type 2 diabetes is not caused by a lack of insulin, at least not in the early and middle stages. It's caused by too much stored energy in the wrong places. Excess fat in the liver and pancreas disrupts the entire glucose control system. High blood sugar is the visible result, but the root cause is internal overflow. This is why simply adding more insulin through medication doesn't solve the underlying problem. It forces more energy into already overfilled cells. Blood sugar. Numbers may improve, so now comes the most important question of all. If type 2 diabetes is driven by excess stored energy, what happens when you stop adding more? What happens when the body is finally given time to burn through what it already has? This is where intermittent fasting enters the picture, not as a diet trend, but as a metabolic reset. Fasting simply means going without food for a defined period of time. It doesn't require special foods, supplements, or complicated rules. It creates a pause. And during that pause, the body switches modes. Instead of storing energy, it starts using it. That shift alone triggers a cascade of changes that directly target the root causes of type 2 diabetes. Within hours of stopping food intake, blood sugar begins to fall. Insulin levels drop with it. This is critical. Insulin is the hormone that tells the body to store energy. When insulin is low, storage stops, access begins. The body opens the door to fat burning. Stored fuel starts moving out of cells and into circulation to be used. In the early phase of a fast, the body uses the glucose already present in the bloodstream. Once that's gone, it turns to stored glucose in the liver, known as glycogen. Glycogen acts as a short-term energy reserve. It keeps blood sugar stable between meals. But glycogen stores are limited. For most people, they're largely depleted within 12 hours. As liver glycogen runs low, insulin continues to fall. This deepens the metabolic shift. The body now needs a new fuel source. That source is fat. Fat cells begin releasing stored fatty acids into the bloodstream. The liver converts part of this fat into ketones, which can fuel the brain, muscles, and other organs efficiently. This metabolic switch is not dangerous, it's natural. Humans evolved to function this way. For most of history, food was not available around the clock. Periods of eating were followed by periods of fasting. The body learned to switch seamlessly between incoming energy and stored energy. Modern eating patterns interrupt that cycle, keeping insulin high and storage locked in place. Here's where fasting becomes particularly powerful for people with type 2 diabetes. As fat is mobilized from storage, it doesn't come from one place at a time. Fat is released from throughout the body, including from inside the liver. As liver fat decreases, insulin sensitivity improves. The liver regains its ability to regulate glucose output appropriately. Research has shown that liver fat can decrease dramatically in a short period. In some studies, a reduction of nearly 1/3 occurred within a single week of calorie restriction. As liver fat falls, fasting blood sugar improves. Morning glucose readings drop. The liver stops flooding the bloodstream with excess sugar. At the same time, reduced fat around the pancreas eases stress on insulin-producing cells. These cells don't always die in type 2 diabetes. Many simply shut down under constant pressure. When the pressure is relieved, function can return. This challenges the long-held belief that type 2 diabetes only moves in one direction. Once fasting extends beyond the early stages, the body enters a deeper metabolic state. This is where the most meaningful changes begin to occur. Insulin levels remain low, fat burning increases, and the body shifts away from storage mode entirely. This isn't just about weight loss. It's about repairing systems that have been under constant strain for years. At this stage, the benefits of fasting go far beyond the scale. One of the most powerful effects of fasting is something scientists call cellular recycling. During periods without food, cells activate an internal cleanup process. Old, damaged components are broken down and reused. Think of it like a factory shutting down production temporarily to repair worn-out machines. This process helps cells function more efficiently once feeding resumes. This cleanup process impacts nearly every tissue in the body, including organs involved in blood sugar control. In people with type 2 diabetes, many cells are damaged not because they're broken beyond repair, but because they've been overwhelmed for too long. Fasting gives these cells a chance to recover, reset, and restore normal function. The pancreas is one of the organs that benefits most from this metabolic pause. The insulin-producing beta cells inside the pancreas work nonstop in people with insulin resistance. They're constantly pushed to release more insulin to compensate for unresponsive cells. Over time, this leads to exhaustion and dysfunction. Fasting reduces this demand. When insulin levels drop during fasting, beta cells finally get a break. They no longer need to overproduce insulin. This reduction in stress allows some of these cells to regain normal responsiveness. Research suggests that many beta cells are not permanently destroyed in type 2 diabetes. Instead, they become inactive under metabolic pressure. Animal and human studies have shown that fasting conditions can stimulate beta cell regeneration. When fat accumulation around the pancreas decreases and insulin demand falls, these cells can wake up and resume insulin production at healthier levels. This discovery has completely reshaped how scientists understand diabetes progression. This is a major shift from older beliefs. For decades, type 2 diabetes was viewed as a one-way decline. Once beta cells failed, they were assumed to be gone forever. But modern research indicates that under the right conditions, pancreatic function can improve. The disease does not always have to worsen over time.